Now let's talk about how to fire someone. Now I have fired hundreds of people in my career, and I'm going to teach you how to fire someone and also when you're likely to be getting fired. So one of the things I hate to do is fire someone. It's a very necessary skill if you want to survive in business. I have often built up large companies that needed to get small again quick for various reasons. You have to learn to fire people. It is not nice. But one of the most difficult things about firing people is understanding when to do it. Now, I think when it comes to actually firing people structurally, like for example, doing it legally, sending the appropriate warnings, doing the proper paperwork, all of this stuff you can get off a lawyer. I'm not going to waste your time telling you the law. In your country, wherever you are, it will be different anyway. I'm going to talk more about the actual act and also what's involved in making the decision as to whether or not someone should be fired. I learned long ago a system that I call the 7 and 8 rule. It's very simple and obvious when I first start explaining it. Now, if someone's in your company and they are really good, like you love them, they love you, they're obviously a 9 and 10, you want to keep them and you want them to stay and they want to stay. Most of the time, those people are 9 and 10s because they're enjoying it. Now, of course, like I said earlier, make sure you give these people equity. Make sure you look after these people over time. But you know you want to keep them and they want to stay. It's a no-brainer, it's cool. Then you have what I call the 1s and 2s. These are people who are shit at their job. They know they're shit at their job. You know they're shit at their job. And most of the time they either quit or you fire them. It's a no-brainer, everyone feels it. They don't turn up on time. They don't care about the purpose of the company. Whatever it is, it's obvious that relationship comes to an end naturally. The really difficult thing for any employer, and for that matter, any employee, is if you are a 7 and 8, which means you're almost good enough. You're almost able to do the job. And sometimes, as an employer, you're desperately hoping they become good enough. You're waiting for them to become a 9 and 10. And some days they are, but then they slip back to a 6. Some days they're a 7. And there's various reasons why people are 7 and 8. And often it's not because they're crap at their job. It's because they're in the wrong job with the wrong team doing the wrong thing. I have often seen a 7 and 8 and actually moved them to a different department or a different role and they become 9s and 10s. But that's not always the case. And sometimes the hardest people to fire are the 7 and 8s. So how do you do it? Well, I think first of all, you put proper structure in place to identify what is success for that employee. You want to understand how they work, what's going on in their lives. Instead of walking into the room and saying you haven't performed, you walk into the room and you say, how can I help you perform? There's things that you can do as a leader to check whether or not that person can get better at their job and if there's anything you can do to support them. But in the end, learn the 7 and 8 rule. And I have seen this. I have kept 7 and 8s in my companies in the past, and the 9s and 10s leave. If someone can surf, get away with it and not do their job and no repercussions, then why would a 9 and 10 stay? Why would a 9 and 10 stay a 9 and 10? If they can get lazy and not work as hard or cut corners and not get fired, then you're going to have a problem. 9 and 10s will not stay in your business and you'll have a company full of 7 and 8s. And 7 and 8s are hard to manage, take up nearly all of the conversation, any HR conversation. You have to learn to grow a pair of balls and fire these people. And you know what? When you do, this has happened to me many times, they're grateful. Because those 7 and 8s, if you fire them, can often go on to find a job they like where they are a 9 and 10 and are appreciated. It's your responsibility to fire 7 and 8s. So how can you identify if someone is a 7 and 8? Well, the rule I have is how many times a day are you talking about them? If they come up too much in any conversation amongst your team members, amongst your customers, more than once or twice in a week, you've probably got a problem. Second thing is, you often are running a system in your brain where you are fearful of not finding a replacement. So you don't want to fire them because they're better than nobody. And I've done this myself many times. A 7 and 8 is at least a pair of hands helping you. When you're building a business, sometimes that's a relief. And the idea of having to find someone new is painful. So you need to get strong. You need to realize and maybe even line up your next hire before you fire. Now, I promise you that employee, and I would be the same, is also looking for another job. So maybe what you can do is help them find that other job. I have done this many times. I've gone to someone who's a 7 and 8 and said, you're not happy, I don't think, you're not completely doing the job the way you should. I've helped you get an interview at this other company. It has actually built relationships with people that weren't happy in the company but are now my friends outside of work. You can help that person, even though it might be frustrating that person's in your company and not performing. The best thing you can do is work out a solution for them and for you. And you can build a great relationship with that person, even though that it's perhaps not a great relationship in the company right now, by helping them move on. So, following the rule, identify 7 and 8s. Be honest with yourself. Do not have fear that you cannot replace them and find a 9 and 10. You will. Help that 7 and 8 find a new job, and always be honest with 7 and 8 how you're feeling. It will be better for you and for them. And there is a chance, and it's happened a few times in my career, where that person becomes a 9 and 10. And it can often be when you give them equity. Let's talk about how to go global. Now, why is going global one of my main points? It's because a lot of people don't realize that they can go global. A lot of people don't realize that they'll probably remove a lot of the risk in their business if they do go global. Why? Well, if you're in more than one market and the market you're in is in trouble, you spread your risk. I've had this happen to me many times. In my early career with Fluid, we were just in Hong Kong and it was risky. Hong Kong had a lot of ups and downs. And when we had the downs, I was subject completely to that down. I had no counterbalance with a business potentially in another market doing well. And going global, it turns out, is not difficult anymore. Often, people don't realize there are a few steps to allow your business to go global when you didn't think it was even possible. So what are those steps? First, identify whether there's an opportunity for your product or your service in another market. So research. And even if you don't want to open up that second office or sell that product in that market, once you understand what markets where this could work are, there's a couple of opportunities for you. Now, I could reverse back to raising money. If you're able to say to someone that you could open up your product in other markets with their investment, it can make an investor happy. That's just one example. It can make an investor actually go ahead and invest in you. Equally, like I mentioned earlier as well, if a brand wants to sponsor you to open up another office, this can be a way for you to grow your business and you'll reduce your risk under the dime of a brand partnership. Research is key at this stage. Find out where your product could be sold, even if you don't want to do the work to do it. Second, you can basically set up models like franchising. So if you don't want to set up that business in another market, you can set up a brand franchising arrangement. So someone else will open it up and someone else will do the work, but you can make money by doing nothing. I hate passive income. I don't think that exists, but this is the closest thing to it, in my opinion. Someone else running your brand in another market under a license. So I think that franchising is a real opportunity, and it's a bit of a misunderstood word, franchising, because a lot of people kind of think of like Subway or McDonald's, but franchising can apply to a service business. And many companies are built on partnerships under a franchise structure. The other thing that's really important about going global is making sure your business can stand the test of time. And if you have a business that is thinking globally, ironically, you're more likely to survive in the long term. You'll learn an important lesson, which is it's easier to run a big company than a small company. Far too many entrepreneurs, and me included at points in my career, have made my business too small that I am the only one that can run it. I can't afford senior management. I can't afford to get help. I can't afford to actually stop working for a week. I'm telling you now, by thinking global, you give yourself a chance to grow a big business, and it's easier than having a small business, despite what you've been told by other people. Get a big business if you can. Now, it does link back to what your mission in life is. Maybe you don't want a big business, but do not decide to not have a big business because you think it's easier to have a small business. It's not. Small is not easier. I have run big businesses and I have run small businesses, and I had an easier life once I'd made the business big. So do not trap yourself in any market. Do not subject yourself to any market that could disrupt your business, and make sure you always give yourself the chance to be free of your very own business not trapping you. How to get a mentor. This is the single biggest question I ever get asked, and it's so simple to answer. No one seems to listen to me, but I'm going to try anyway. If you want a mentor in your business, I totally understand why that sounds cool. But the reality is, people have built businesses around this concept that you need a mentor, and they've sold you it as the solution. It isn't. What you actually need is not a mentor. What you need in reality is someone who can answer the questions that you have. and perhaps even give you the answers to questions you didn't know to ask. And this can all be done without a mentor.